I'm going to talk about this quote for a second, because this is the world we live in that I think is lost on a lot of people. And I've really started changing the way I behave, realizing this. And you'll see this with what's happening in the world. So this is originally attributed to Karl Rove. The National use it in their song, Take It Back. I'll get out of the way at the end so you can see the whole thing, but I'll read it to you. People like you are still living in what we call the reality-based community. You believe that solutions emerge from your judicious study of discernible reality. That's not the way the world works anymore. We're an empire now. And when we act, we create our own reality. And while you are studying that reality judiciously, as you will, we'll act again, creating other new realities, which you can then study too. And that's how things will sort out. We're history's actors, and you, all of you, will be left just to study what we do. Now, I'm going to talk about this in context of something that just happened. I had posted something on LinkedIn, and the author of the article is just wrong. It's just wrong. It's based on false data, but it's this giant report. And the author instantly came in, and started countering. But it's a 220-page report, and it's just filled with nonsense, but with some fact. So if I point out nonsense, they'll just go to the page that has fact on it and be like, well, what about this? And there's an argument strategy called gish galloping. Gish galloping is you just keep throwing facts at people, and they're not able to really stop you, right? Because they can pull out one and be like, hey, this is wrong. And you'd be like, yeah, but I've already on to the sixth, seventh thing. And the way you deal with those people is just cut them off. So on LinkedIn, which is a professional setting and everything, I just blocked the person. First of all, it made me laugh. But second of all, no, I can take back my power. And you'll see this, right? You'll see this online. And now, obviously, people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg understand this tenfold, right? They just plow through. Elon Musk isn't a genius. What Elon Musk is somebody who exploited the normal behaviors that we accepted as the way to work. Same thing Trump does, right? So normally in the setting of something like LinkedIn, in a professional setting, you wouldn't block somebody. You would engage them and have a discussion with them. But what this person will do is they'll keep everything that I bring up that, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. They'll bring out, yeah, but what about this? What about this? And they'll eventually wear me down, and then they'll be victors, and then we will all go look and go, oh my God, they're so smart. Or I can just block them and take that away from them, right? That's why I love Blue Sky so much, because when you block someone, it's like, F you, I'm never going to hear from you again. No one's going to hear from you again. No one in my realm is going to hear from you again. We don't ever have to put up with your bullshit. And that's how you have to start behaving now, because that's what these people are doing, right? The Elon Musks are just like, hey, I'm going to break all the laws, and by the time you go to sue me, it won't matter anymore. He has been selling self-driving cars that can't self-drive for 2 decades or something, right? He doesn't have self-driving. He's behind in self-driving over everybody else. But he's still the one selling it. Because you know what? Regulators, by the time they catch up, by the time civil, polite society catch up and correct him or call him on it, now Trump's the president. He's not going to get arrested for it. He's not going to get thrown in jail. He's not going to get fined for it. It's cool. Right? And so they just make their own reality by just ignoring the normal social norms. And this isn't to say that you start calling people bad words or whatever. But when you see people doing this, when you see people trying to do this to you, just stop. It's not an argument anymore. Right? And they'll be like, oh, what about free speech? What about that? No. That's not what this is about. That's the paradox of free speech, right? Is you're trying to remove my speech by just running over me. Right? And then I'll get well, how else am I supposed to learn if you don't engage with me? Hey, I don't care about who you become. That's for your mom to care about. I care about who you are. And who you are is somebody I don't want to deal with. So I block you. And I move on. I do that on every place now. I used to not block people. Now I block people everywhere. Because that's a society that we've gotten in, is because people have learned online that if you are polite, if you are civil to them, they will run over you. They will be like, hey, we should kill this group of people, right, Chet? And I'll be like, well, no, that's crazy. They're like, yeah, but what about these? Look at this guy. Oh, look at that. And then they'll just keep going, right? And it just wear you down. And they'll be like, well, what, you're going to argue that Jeffrey Dahmer was a good person? You're like, no, I never said that, right? There's another phrase that's called, I hate waffles. And that's, hey, I really love pancakes. I'm going to make a video about how much I love pancakes. And the first response is, so you hate waffles, right? It's the idea that if you don't mention all the positives, that then they're going to pull out the negative. And that's, again, a dishonest way to argue and engage with you. The minute you see somebody do that, don't be like, oh, no. Because they can just keep listing things that you're not going to mention. And then you're going to presumably hate them. And it makes then you look like you're full of hate versus you being the positive one, speaking about how much you love pancakes. So just block that person. Cut them out. And then I'll say that about whole entire platforms. That's why the meta platforms in particular, where they're going to have AI now that you're going to have to engage with, and you're going to have to argue with AI, making up stuff. No, man, just cut it out. Just block it all. So I have the domain name Amish 2000, and the idea was going to be we were going to be modern Amish, that we're just going to cut off at 2000. If it wasn't built by the 2000, we weren't going to use it anymore. Sometimes I think about that and going back to that, because it just cuts us all out, right? It just removes all this nonsense, because all of these bad actors are fueled by this nonsense, by this stupidity, right? Like, you can now go, if you go on on YouTube in particular, is you can't block somebody. So what you can just say is just hide from my channel, but they'll still show up in counters. So you'll see like a bunch of comments, but there's no comments. That's them. They're yelling at me about, hey, my face is breaking out, so I must be wrong, or I must be wrong because Valve didn't release Half-Life 3. Someone used that as an argument against me once in an argument. They're like, well, why didn't you release Half-Life 3? I'm like, well, I'm talking about my cat. What do you like, what? And that's the nonsense argument, right? Just cut that out. Just block it. Just remove it. And if they say like, oh, you're not man enough to argue with me, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Just cut them off and laugh. The madder they get. Man, if anybody ever gets on to me from one platform to another to be like, well, why'd you block me? That just makes me laugh. Idiots.